Welcome back.
Welcome back. Hey, guys.
Welcome back.
Hey, Mark.
Hey Michael.
Hey,
Hey, Mark.
Good to see you guys again.
Hey, guys. Thanks for joining in episode 4 of the Torn Between podcast. Today, we're talking about what the heck you would actually do as a missionary. Right?
Yes. That's it.
That's the blunt way to put it. But we're gonna dive into what it actually means to build a resume. What does it look like to have a clear job role? How you can actually develop your professional skills doing cross-cultural work and service work. So hopefully we can get over some of the misconceptions of what a missionary does. Which I think part of it is a lot of them are actually kind of true, but with One Collective, they're quite different.
Let's dive in and see if that holds true, Michael.
Yeah. So we'll start with I'm torn between something where I am now and then the idea of cross-cultural service work.
That has been a theme in this series. Michael's been torn between.
Which is genuinely true. Am I playing it up a little bit? Yeah. But also, it is true. And I have been genuinely learning so much from you guys.
Appreciate
so this series
that.
has been
That's
fun.
awesome.
So here's the problem that I need your guys' help with. I, as I've been talking about, considering Spain, right? But also I have this job where I literally make these podcasts for One Collective, and among many other things that I do. And so a thing that is holding me up from the idea of moving abroad is I have a pretty clear job role here. I have clear income. I have clear skills that I am developing at One Collective, and I feel pretty good about them. Learning CRMs, project management, leadership, all these things. In my conversations and thoughts about moving to Spain and doing cross-cultural service work is that I would go there and I would just run a Bible study or just live with people and be like, oh, how are you today? Can I evangelize to you? And then our team, prints matching shirts that all say Apotheca or the Pilgrim House. Come join us and meet the love of Jesus, which is all great and good, but I'm playing into some of the misconceptions and myths. But,
Sure.
Actually my fear though is I would move here and I wouldn't have a real job. It wouldn't be a real job. I wouldn't be developing my professional self anymore. And then that would hinder me in the future if I ever wanted to move back or into any other professional field. And we've talked about this a little bit, and I know it's not true, but that still is my fear.
Right.
So how do I get over that fear? And what is the truth about cross-cultural service work?
Where does that fear come from? Because I'm trying to, I know our teams that work around the world. I know many of our people, a couple hundred people who work around the world with us. They are using their skills. I'm just curious, where does your fear about that come from?
Yeah, I think it comes from the idea that in America, I have a pretty good job and I'm a videographer, which has some almost prestige to it sometimes. I get to travel, I get to make videos, pretty cool, I guess. And my fear is that I would move here, and my understanding is as a missionary, you just sit down and so you'd
give up all that you've worked for.
I would give up all that I work for and would then just become a service-oriented person, which is not bad at all. People need other people to sit down with them and to love them and spend time with them. And we do that in a lot of places in One Collective.
But loving and serving are things that you're less drawn to than photography. Just to throw it out there.
Yeah, I'm not about loving people. No. I feel I have hard skills that I really value and spent time developing, and I feel I would not have the opportunity to use those, even though I think those would be a way I could bless and serve people there. And I'm learning, and I think trying to learn what would it look like to use those skills cross-culturally.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this would be a good time to discuss a few of those myths or misconceptions that come up and inform your thinking and contribute to those fears that you're having. So let's brainstorm. What are some common myths that people might have when anticipating starting this process, and what could keep them from moving forward, and what is the actual truth? What's the reality like, both with One Collective and maybe just in general?
Yeah. So misconception number one, like I just go abroad and I run a Bible study or like an after school program and I just like sit around and like host people or something. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking, and this might be like a kind of a deep rabbit trail. So like, are you guys okay if we like really dive in and like tear apart the idea of missions work a little bit in the title?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. I feel like every time I've heard a missionary like talk at my church or be like at church camp, and they're like, the message oftentimes is there's this number of unreached people in this country or whatever, and they need you to evangelize to them. But also like if you take it a step further, like missionaries, I feel like are like what I feel about them is they ask for people's money and then they go and they kind of just like hang out in this other country. And I'm like, what are you actually doing though? And it doesn't feel like it's necessarily an effective use of funds. And this is kind of coming from me, which is like a more like entrepreneurship, business-minded person.
Yeah, and a little skeptical.
Yeah, very skeptical, maybe even like where when I was growing up, I was like, oh, I'm all about this. And then I was like, all right, no, let's nuance this a lot more now. And sometimes I feel like missionaries are a waste of money.
I'm going to take your side on this question a little
Really?
bit because it sounds like some of your perceptions are coming from actual data points that you have seen
Yeah.
and observed and heard. And so you naturally would be in this place today where you're skeptical.
Yeah.
Somewhat, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think also like historically, as you've seen it presented to you, it may be just a little tiny fraction of the reality of what's actually happening, but the way it's communicated might not have been effective
Yeah.
in really like rallying up interest and attracting people to the work because they're not communicating things that would actually speak to future missionaries or future goers that would resonate with them and get them to want to join.
Yeah.
Right? So I think a communication piece and communicating ineffectively actually informs your like misconception too.
100%. Yeah.
Let me tell you a little bit of my story. So years ago, I studied accounting. And my favorite course was Accounting 101, which was like the first freshman year. I loved it.
Yeah.
But then as the years went on, through my major, I didn't like it. But I ended up with an accounting degree, became a CPA, and I and my wife and 2 kids, we went to what used to be Zaire. It's the Democratic Republic of Congo now. And I was a treasurer at a medical center in northeastern Zaire.
Okay.
So I was using a skill that I had learned, disliked, but I had learned, and I was using it for a very specific, needed role at this medical center that had like over 100 beds. It was a significant place.
Wow.
And so that's what I did. And I think that there are numerous examples of people who use their hard skills in mission type work and service around the world.
Yeah.
That's just one.
Yeah. Would you say this is true about One Collective, that we have a lot of open positions on different teams? Would you say those positions are kind of representative of like an actual job posting with like requirements, responsibilities, and like expectations?
Yes, I would say that. And that's how we encourage our leaders around the world to think of their open opportunities. So the first step for them is evaluating in the community where there might be a need that isn't currently being met, a need that is strategic for their vision for where this community should be going, and that, isn't present in the community right now. And that's how One Collective can have a deeper impact and get further involved in the ministry there. And so then the need translates to an opportunity of how we can promote this and how we can attract people to this type of role. And then the opportunity, I think, gets shaped around the actual applicant that we're in conversation with, that we're talking about their unique set of skills, their experiences, their training, their interests and hobbies and passions. And we take those open roles, those open opportunities, and we combine them with what we know about the applicant. And then we create a job description that fits both the needs on the field and the skills and what the person can offer that's coming to One Collective.
I see. That is actually getting at one of my misconceptions, I think, which is like, for example, I graduated and I was thinking about going like long-term missions. And so I graduated, and then like we were chatting, Mark, you were my mobilizer. And like, this wasn't really a conversation between us, but my expectation is somebody like me graduates and they're like, I want to do this thing. And then the organization is like, great, another body. Where do we want to just throw them? Instead of being like, no, we actually have a need for your specific characteristics and skills, and let us strategically place you. I feel like my misconception is that isn't ever done with any strategic element to it, which is not true at One Collective.
Do you feel like you have a sense of pressure that you have to make this decision and then stick with this decision for a certain period of time? Because I think that's another common myth, that you're deciding that you're going to do missions, and that's the only then pathway forward, and there's no room for change. There's no room to pivot to something different, whether that's in the mission space or outside of the mission space. You can't change your mind once you've made that commitment.
You're kind of locked in.
And you're locked in for life. Do you feel any pressure like that?
I maybe not exactly that I'm locked in for life, but what makes me fear that is the idea that I will join this missions, and then I will have this like weird gap in my resume, and then after that I will become less ideal of a hire to an employer.
Interesting.
And so reintegrating back into the professional space, like my expectation is it would be kind of challenging.
So in your mind, the professional development stops when you go to the
Literally,
field.
which is not true. Like maybe like I think personal development would happen because you're like in a whole new like country and culture and everything, and you're gonna learn so much. Which is good. But also I'm like, I care about the professional development. Which you guys are kind of saying like does happen.
It does happen. It doesn't have to be a gap in your resume. It can actually be an asset in your resume that you have international experience.
Tell me about how cross-cultural work can be an asset in my resume.
You will be able to present to your prospective employers after returning back home that you have lived in another culture. You have perhaps learned a different language and spoken that language. You will have interacted with people who are outside of the conventional demographic from where you're from or from your hometown, whatever. It just gives you a depth and a breadth of, I realize these are all personal and not so much the
I was about to call you out. I'm like, this is like encouraging my misperception.
Oh, wow.
Maybe.
Okay.
Like, because you're saying all you would have to speak to your new employer is personal developments. Again, like I'm not hearing that there is professional developments on the field.
Well, yeah. Okay. So in addition to like cultural intelligence, cultural awareness in a global economy, which is actually really important to know how to connect with people from different backgrounds around the world. It depends what you'd be doing on the field and if that would further your skills and your professional development. And so if you chose something, and if like an organization like One Collective had an opportunity for you to actually use those hard skills and contribute to the work that a team is doing in a particular community, I think that you could actually grow in your hard skills depending on what it is that you're doing. I mean, so in this example, like if you were a videographer on the field, you might be the only videographer on that team, so you may or may not be mentored by somebody who's an employee of the organization, who's, been doing it for longer than you. But you'd probably develop content that then would be used in multiple ways throughout the organization. It could be part of your portfolio going forward.
Yeah.
It could be something where you learn to see things through a different lens. Maybe you'd collaborate with other videographers from other organizations who are also sharpening their skills. Maybe you'd have a chance to present at conferences in different parts of the world. Maybe it would just open up new professional doors that you wouldn't even have here because of your location or because of, just the new opportunities you have there.
No, that's really helpful to hear. Okay, I want to dive into a case study different than the one you just gave me, but I want to be like really concrete about this.
Yeah.
So like, imagine I just graduated and I got a nutritionist degree, and I want to do cross-cultural work. What would that look like for me to use that hard skill like on a day-to-day basis with One Collective?
Yeah. So if you were going to use that skill here in the US, maybe you'd be affiliated with a practice, or maybe you'd have a set of clients and maybe you're helping them with diet or lifestyle changes. And it's a pretty specific schedule that you'd maintain, and you know what you expect and you know who you're working with. If you're going to apply that in a community that's developing, that's under-resourced, that doesn't have the same access to healthcare that we do here, I think then that you're able to apply that in a way that's really meaningful and life-changing to people who may not understand how to properly feed their family. Maybe they don't understand what good nutrition can mean for disease prevention. Maybe they don't understand what maternal nutrition can look like to properly feed a pregnant woman, before they give birth and nourish the baby. So I think like nutrition is actually something that nutrition education is something that is lacking in a lot of parts of the world, that with proper training and like investing in people's growth and development and education, this can actually be a really life-changing set of skills that you can apply in a very meaningful way.
Yeah.
And in the locations where we work, Michael, our focus is always on people who are more on the margins.
Okay.
And so we're going to be working with people who don't have access to the kinds of healthcare and clean water and healthy food sources and resources that a typical person in the U.S. would have. So a nutritionist in another country working with people who are on the margins, that would be a real useful skill in that setting.
Yeah, I'm just now remembering actually a story that's really related to this that I think One Collective put up right before I joined sometime. And it was about like in Ecuador, about them working with the people that are like on the margins, that are like really in poverty there, because malnutrition was a huge problem there, and is. And like actually having somebody there to like diagnose that and then like recommend, I don't know, like if they're like giving food out or something like that. I remember that like being like very specific and hearing that from One Collective.
I mean, healthcare in general, healthcare education, whether that's like practicing good hygiene, whether it's about vaccines or prevention of chronic disease. I think that healthcare education is something that we take for granted here, and maybe we grow up knowing and our families have instilled some things in us, but in a lot of parts of the world there is a huge lack of access to that.
Yeah, and so people going in the medical field or in nutrition area, they would be starting at a more elementary level than someone who's working as a nutritionist and a medical doctor or nurse here in the U.S. but it can be, therefore, I think, even more transformational because it's being done often at a more preventative level than in response to issues and health problems that come up for people.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's public health.
All right. Another myth that I'm just going to join a team that has matching t-shirts and we're just going to walk around and evangelize.
Okay, this is funny, but I think it also speaks to something true that people have a fear of, or just maybe an assumption of, not a fear. An assumption is that you're going to be doing everything in groups.
Yeah.
And you're going to be doing everything together because that's people's experience on short-term teams when they're sent out by their church or their university, is that, you know, never be alone, never do anything alone. Everything you're going to be doing is in a group of 10 and with matching t-shirts.
Yeah.
But in reality, you are doing your own unique role on the field. You have a job, and the rest of the team that you're serving with has their own jobs, and that's often in cooperation with other people in the community, maybe people from other organizations, maybe people, you know, who are expats who are living there, you know, a whole variety of people that are linking arms together with a common vision for transformation in this community. And so you're probably going to be working alone for part of the time. You're probably going to be working hand in hand with some team members for a portion of the week, a given week. You're probably going to be working with other people outside the team for another part of the week. It's really something that you have to reset your expectations for, that this is my job and I'm operating like this is a career, and that I am an independent person and I'm capable of managing my own time. That's a skill set that we look for actually in people, and it's something learned, and it's not something that people, you know, necessarily are born with and a trait that everyone has. But I do think that that is an expectation that is wrong. It's a myth that people have about missionary work, and in reality it looks a lot more like you're doing a job and you're living in community with people.
Michael, I can assure you, I have visited, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 of our teams around the world. I have never seen team t-shirts. I have never seen like groups of 10 or 12 kind of huddling together, working around, all working on the same project. Occasionally, right? You might be preparing a meal for guests or something, so you all team up to do that. But the myth is so easily shot out of the water.
Yeah.
And so, next myth.
Great. We kind of talked about this in our last episode, but
A little bit.
the myth is if I become a missionary, I will like pretty much be living in poverty. Like I won't be able to actually build wealth. I won't actually be able to have a decent income because I should just fundraise enough just to be able to live.
And that this is a sacrifice, so you should live sacrificially.
Exactly.
Yeah, I understand how people come to that idea.
Yeah, I think that that people doing mission work, and I can only speak on behalf of my organization, One Collective, I think people doing mission work, there is a cap kind of to their salary, but that cap is higher than what I think most people looking in might guess. And that cap can be raised as well. Yes, it relates to fundraising, which provides the source of that salary and the increasing of a salary, but we don't do like poverty missions. The budgets that we set for our people, they're also not luxurious, but they are generous. I use the word robust. We prepare our people well, and so their budgets include things like savings, retirement, vacation, and other things. And the worker has influence into what their salary is going to be.
Even building in generosity into your budget is important to us, so that you as a worker can keep giving from your overflow to other important things that you care about, whether that's other workers, whether that's organizations, church-based ministries, your local church. But building that into your budget makes it intentional, that you are actually preparing and planning to give in addition to receiving.
Yeah. I will say this too, that clearly, if you're looking to be a mega millionaire, going the route of foreign mission service is probably not the path you want to follow. That's evident. But in terms of like poverty and having to scrimp and save, that's not the way that we follow.
It doesn't make for healthy missionaries. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
If you're living in poverty, if you're worried about how your needs will be met, if that's consuming all of your energy and it's creating anxiety, then you cannot do your work to your best potential.
Yeah. I love that. And we don't have to dig into it a ton. Like, if you guys want to learn more about that, watch our previous episode, because we talked about this a lot. But it is a really helpful myth to overcome. And you guys, last episode, totally changed my perspective on that.
Great.
Which was really, really cool. Thanks,
I
guys.
want to mention the idea of internships, because I think as people are in college, as people are, gaining experience and learning a new set of skills, they're wondering how they can use these on the field, maybe in ministry. And a really great way to try that out and to, kind of get a feel for what long-term work could look like is through perhaps a summer internship. Maybe it's a whole semester. Maybe it looks like a gap year. But an internship type experience where you're joining a long-term team in a community of ours around the world as essentially a temporary teammate. So you're brought into the fold. You're joining all of the team meetings, and you're doing some strategic planning, and you're contributing to long-term projects, and you're doing it also to build your own skill set and to learn from others who have been there longer than you and will be there longer than you after you leave, and it's informing your future too. And so we offer many opportunities for people to come get a taste of what work looks like with us, and really make a meaningful contribution. We wouldn't offer the internship if it didn't play a part in the long-term vision. And so we want people to come experience what that's like with us. And then we, as mobilizers, as serving coaches, we develop even like a longer-term relationship with those people where we're seeing them through that experience and then continuing our discussions with them and seeing where the rest of their, university education takes them and where they might end up afterward. So I think that's a really great way to get more
a really practical example of that is I did an internship with One Collective.
That's right.
Where you even said this, like, you were like, hey, can you go to Bulgaria and South Africa, make some videos because we want to tell the stories of those communities, and then like help us do that. And I was like, yeah. So I did that for a summer, and I went and I filmed and worked with those teams and got to see the ministry, which is like what really hooked me into One Collective, because like this is ministry done differently, and I got to tell those stories, and I came away from it with an awesome portfolio piece, and also you guys had like a really, I hope, like a valuable story and video to share and to use.
I
about
think
these communities.
our communications director would say that we got that.
Yeah.
And then at some point soon after that, you were onboarded into the role you're currently in, a full-time position.
Yeah, and that wouldn't have happened without doing that internship.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would encourage all young people to consider an internship if this is on your mind at all for the future.
Yeah.
And some younger people, college students, can use a summer experience to check a box for their college requirement.
Right.
I just spoke yesterday with a Taylor University student who spent 6 weeks in Mazatepe, Nicaragua, teaching English in a local school. Part of what our team does there, as a part of her TESOL, teaching English as a second language requirement at Taylor University.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and she wants to go long term
Oh, that's awesome.
in some
Wow.
capacity.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is funny. 2 of my siblings have also been in this pipeline. Like my brother went to Ukraine for 3 months.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that was time that he used, one, to develop his skill of becoming a software developer, while he also just
Wow, a
co-worked.
hard skill.
Yeah, he developed that. He taught himself that, but he did that because
taught
like his
himself.
job there in a way was to like co-work and to co-live with people there and also
Yes.
challenge people to speak English and stuff
Yes.
like that. And that then long term, he ended up working for One Collective as a software developer. And same for my
right.
sister. She checked that box of
That's right.
doing teaching in Bulgaria for summer, and now she's there long term. So both.
So we've really
So,
seen this play out in
in
your
the Proctor's
family.
life, 3 internships ended up being long-term work with One Collective.
And I've heard there are younger siblings in the ranks.
As
right?
they come
Coming
to
up,
age,
yeah.
I'll connect you.
You'll point them in this direction. There have been leaders on the field with One Collective who have said to us in mobilization, or ask your people, what do you love to do? Identify that. Come and do it here.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't play out exactly that way. I mean, that's like a blank check that you can't promise, but there's something to that. And that is, if you have a skill or sometimes even a hobby, something that you are passionate about and you have some experience in doing that, sometimes our teams around the world will have an opening for exactly what you love to do.
Yeah.
We have places where people use their artistic painting skills, for example, to
Yeah.
work with refugees.
Yeah.
We have at least one team, maybe more than one, where young people who have musical acumen, abilities, they write songs and they go and sing and they lead worship.
I do think that particularly with Gen Z, I just heard about this from a partner organization of ours who over a period of time conducted a survey of a bunch of different generations and what their motivations for service were and also what kept them from moving forward. And they were able to compare the different generations and their like top motivators. And it was really interesting to hear. And for boomers and Gen X, they found themselves a lot more motivated by a particular location in the world and maybe a calling to a people group. And for younger Gen Z applicants, that is not in even maybe the top 5 motivators.
Okay.
Instead, they're really entirely motivated by pursuing a skills-based position, and that's what draws them to maybe a location they've never heard of,
Yeah.
maybe a location that they had no knowledge of in the past, and that God is now opening up that opportunity and speaking to them through the role that they were equipped for, that then they pursue.
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting revelation that the generations operate differently, and we're seeing this kind of trend
Yeah.
with younger people towards pursuing your area of expertise, pursuing your skills, and then that follows the people and the location where you'll be working. That
Yeah.
follows that.
Yeah. Which that's absolutely true of me, for sure. Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I want to use my skill, develop my skills, and like the location, people, I'm open.
I will say that fairly common for me is that people will, maybe they present with wanting to do something in a certain field, maybe communications and then on the field, so we may have a role description, an opportunity on our website that describes something in the area of communications, but then in communicating with the field leader, sometimes that's where the communication needs to be kind of consistent, so that the conversation, the information that the leader on the field is sharing needs to flow with what the aspiring worker is interested in.
Yeah.
And that can be a challenge. That
Okay.
can be a challenge. And
Yeah.
even then, once they get to the field, then you find out what their role is really like and is
Yeah.
really involved with.
Yeah.
And I think communication all along that is really important.
Because people on both sides make assumptions
Yeah.
and think that they know what it entails and what life will be like there, and the leader on the field thinks they know what the person is bringing to the team and what their expectations are.
Yeah.
And if it's not talked about, then there's going to be unmet expectations on both sides.
Yeah.
So that's something we encourage in this process is please dive into your expectations with the leader as you're having these conversations, these interviews about your future in this place, because you will find that you do have expectations, even if you don't realize them yet.
Yeah.
They're subconscious, but as you bring them to the surface and you intentionally think about it and then discuss it, you're going to have to come to a compromise and some sort of agreement on what is reality there.
Yeah.
And knowing that before you go is going to save a lot of hurt.
And even then, after all of that really good work, you get to the field and you still, both sides will have to have a lot of flexibility because it's
Yes.
just not what you are going to expect completely.
Would you say it's true that you get to, in a way, make your role and kind of like figure out what it looks like as you join the team and start to do work?
Yes, but I don't think it's entirely up to you. I think it's in service of the goals of the team and what the leader sees as the right next step for this team.
Yeah. So it's a very fluid, dynamic experience and figuring
It
out.
is. I mean, there are general parameters to the role. Like if you're a communications person, you're not an agriculture person. Okay,
For
you're
sure.
a communications person. You have some general.
Yeah.
But then, in ongoing communication, and then once you get to the field, you go, "Oh, I have never been to this location before. I don't. Where do I buy my food?" So you're learning how to live all over again.
Yeah.
And you're starting a new job. So
Yeah.
you have to have. Yes, it is fluid. It involves the personality of the person. It involves the leader and what their expectations are. Just a lot of communication is so vital.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Which is true for any job, a marketplace job or working in cross-cultural ministry.
Or any relationship, like a
and
romantic
relationship.
relationship.
Yeah, true.
Or entering into marriage.
Episode 1, guys.
Wow, yeah.
Well, thanks for walking me through this, guys, and let me yap and process this. Because, like, genuinely, I'm here, and this is one I care a lot about. Hopefully, this has been helpful for you as you are trying to figure out, like, what role you want to fill in maybe cross-cultural work or in a marketplace job. Hopefully, this has just, like, helped you feel known and your feelings feel felt as you're experiencing a lot of these questions. And if you guys want to explore this more and see if there's a role at One Collective that could fit you, talk to Mark or Carly. They would love to chat with you and help you figure out, as they are helping me figure out, what my role could be abroad. So, thanks for watching.
Feelings feel felt.
Yeah, I didn't really know.
Kind of like that. It's endearing. It's